And we're recording. Yeah. I just got off of work not too long ago, but I'm like, I have so much stuff to record. Yeah. So I have I've just been over here tinkering.
Yeah.
While you get yourself together.
Wow.
I've got a stack of books for my favorites that I just pulled. I have to get one more off the top shelf. I don't own all of them, but I own maybe 70% of them. So I found all of them. I got us together for recording. It's never a dull moment over here, Naomi.
I see. I will not be pulling my favorites together probably until, I don't know, Friday.
Well, that's good for you.
Maybe Saturday.
I only have tomorrow off, tomorrow being New Year's. So happy New Year's, everybody.
Happy New Year.
So I will be busy recording.
Yeah.
And editing.
Yeah.
I have such a glut of things, just things. It's constant. So
happy times. Happy times.
And I've got my Edith Wharton project to do, and I apparently feel like I need to just constantly be busy.
Sometimes we can't help it. Yeah. Sometimes we can't help it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well.
Anywho. What are you reading? Yeah.
So many things. All right. So I recently finished book 3 in the Vada War series by Elizabeth Boone. And that's Command Decision. Such a rollicking good time. I really love this sci-fi series. Elizabeth Moon is new to me. I discovered her during one of my internet deep dives last year and got her books. And I am just so glad the internet's brought me Elizabeth Moon. So in this book, we are really featuring two other crew members. Her cousin, what is her name? Her cousin Stella and Raphael, who is the son of the corporation, the CEO's corporation, the corporation CEO. And so there's something going on with their transmission system. And when Raphael goes to investigate, he's trying to get a hold of his family. And comes to find out his family is nowhere to be found, which is very strange. And so hence begins this big search as to what happened to Raphael's family. Are they still alive? Does someone murder them? Who took them or who killed them or whatever's going on? So he's got Kai Vada on the team. Stella's helping out. They've got all these other people that are pulling together to try to figure out where the family is. They come across a bit of information where there's this group who deals with these type of situations. This is what they do. And so they hook up with them to help along the way. And it's just a really good time. I mean, it's just so action-packed. It's so action-packed, and I loved every moment of it. I love this crew. I love Kai because from book 1, when Kai was, booted out of her little military, spacey, whatever, boot camp or whatever, and she had to get on board with her family's company, she has grown so much in these last 2 books, and I just love seeing her just really figure out what she wants to do. And of course I won't spoil it, but towards the end, she makes another big decision, which is going to be, I think, just a total bomb dropper in book 4. So I'm super psyched to start book 4 soon. But anyway, Command Decision was great. If you have not heard of Elizabeth Moon, if you have not heard or read the series, the Vada War series, I highly recommend it. It is seriously a good time. It's a good time.
I love how much you love that.
It's so good. It is just so good.
Well, I don't think I would have as I guess riveting a discussion as you just had. but I just need to tell you that I did this so that you know that I did this. I finished Terra Nostra by Carlos Fuentes this morning as of recording.
What?
I can't fully say that I understand everything that happened in this. It is strange. Okay. But I also didn't hate it. I feel like this is something that perhaps needs to be read many times. I was also kind of reading it a bit on like a time crunch. So maybe that was not necessarily the best way to have read Terra Nostra. But yeah, I don't know how to explain this. I don't think I knew how to explain this the last time I said I read Terra Nostra. I was reading this. I think I mentioned this when I started it.
You did.
But it's essentially like an alternate history of Spain and kind of society on the whole. And it reminds me in many ways of Gravity's Rainbow in terms of like looking at history and maybe the far-reaching effects of it and how we kind of continuously repeat things and are almost doomed to destroy ourselves in some way. And it's also ridiculous. Instead of having limericks, this has like a lot of poop and poop adjacent things. It's very it's poignant at times. It's very reflective on like God, society, history, all that kind of stuff, colonialism. But it's also like just bizarre, like weird and grotesque. And I don't know, you kind of, it's an experience. I have to say, it's definitely not going to be for everybody. I think if you've read Gravity's Rainbow and you enjoyed it to any degree, you should try Terra Nostra. I think that it hits similar notes. They're obviously very different books, but they hit similar notes. So I think like you'd find something that you enjoy in it. And I'm just proud of myself for reading it.
Wow.
And there's just a lot in it to like dissect and break down, and yeah, it's a trip.
Well, I was not expecting you to say that you finished that already. That was not on my little recording session bingo card.
I did. I finished it. I actually cleared off my decks. On the way home today, I started another book, but I might finish it before the New Year's Eve is out. I might not. I might go to sleep after this. It's short. We'll talk about it in another episode. But I was very proud to see like no current reads at like 9 a.m. this morning or 8 a.m. this morning. I was like, yes.
I feel you. I've cleared the deck this week too a bit. Yeah, it felt good.
I have a stack of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books to start. 8 in the next week.
Same. I'm very excited about it too. Very excited.
Me too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, did you do you want to tell the folks why
I do want to tell the
here today,
folks, why we are here today, why we are gathered here today. But before I do, we have a comment that I want to share.
And this is on share the comments on the episodes. I like that.
Me too. So this is on our Margot's Got Money Troubles, and this is from Queen of Sanity 3004. Thanks, ladies. I just finished Margot's Got Money Troubles. It was so fun to read and relatable. Thanks for discussing it. I also hope to read some of these books you suggested at the end. I thought it was really nice. And you know what? I think that Margot's Got Money Troubles is just fun. And probably a good book to like start your year off with. It's just like refreshing.
You know what? That is actually a really good idea. That is a great idea because it's like it's kind of like a feel-good book in a way, and it moves quickly. Yeah. So you feel like you accomplished something on day one. Yeah. It's a good,
yeah. So anyway,
I agree.
But why are we here? We are here. I don't have this book actually, so you're gonna have to hold it up. But no, I have an ebook of it. We are here to discuss our last book club read of 2024, and that is Fever Dream by Samantha Schweblin. I read this a couple weeks ago, and I really enjoyed this. I think that this is I don't know, it was trippy and like a mood, and it was see, now I see, look at me and my color
Yay!
Kindle. I really enjoyed. It's a horror. It's like kind of a novella, a novel. I never really know where novella and novel like sit. So if
For
anybody wants to
me,
tell me in the comments, tell me.
I know for
Uh,
me, if it's 250 pages or less, I call it a novella. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong.
we'll call it a novella.
Yeah.
And it's translated from Spanish. She's an Argentine author. It's translated by Megan McDowell.
McDowell. Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's very atmospheric. I absolutely loved it. I'm glad that you recommended it. There is a movie which you told me about late
Yeah.
last night, and unfortunately I was not able to watch it, but I will be doing that shortly.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I was amazed. I had a feeling I would like it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect for it to kind of blow my top off with so much going on and so much to dissect and so much to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
I was very surprised by that. And I really like how this book made me feel, which was a lot. I enjoyed it a great deal. I most definitely want to read the rest of her books because I am super interested in what she has to say in her other works. Yes, I find her to be a really exciting writer.
Very interested in the rest of her translated to English books. I definitely felt very unsettled. It felt good, like not like good, like happy or anything, but like it felt like I really felt the emotions. I really was connected. I was in there. I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
I needed to know like what's going on. And we only get so many answers, right? Clearly from the text. And then there's a lot that you can interpret afterwards. And we both actually watched the same videos about this, and we can link them, I guess, in the
most definitely
in the show notes.
Definitely.
There's 2 absolutely wonderful videos talking about this book, and they're both from a channel called Exploring Hispanic Studies. Phenomenal.
They've got some great videos on there.
And there are other videos, and it's a very small channel, so I mean, please give them a sub, because I thought they were great stuff. So
yeah, I subbed and turned notifications on.
Yes, do that with us as well. Do it right now. Thank you. Do you want to give a sort of summary, if you can, of the book?
I shall try. All right, so we open up with a woman named Amanda, and she appears to be in a hospital, possibly hanging on to dear life, possibly dead in some kind of a dream state. I'm not really sure, but she's having this one-on-one conversation with a boy named David, and he is trying to get her to recount her days there. She's with her daughter Nina, and they're in this rural country on like a little vacation or whatever, and things happen, and he's trying to get her to recount her days there, like retracing her stuff to kind of figure out what has happened, because things are happening, and he's trying to get her to remember what happened and where things went wrong. That's the best I can explain it. It is very difficult for me.
Yeah, so you have Amanda, who is like from the city. She goes out to La Pampas, which is like the countryside of Argentina. Big, like, think like middle of America, plains, farmland, like all that kind of stuff. It's like soybean country, which I didn't realize until we were watching other stuff, really, like how much soybean agriculture, like the big agras going on out there. And she is with she's trying to remember. David is trying to prompt her to remember what happened, I guess, on this vacation she goes on. She meets this woman who she's kind of enamored with her. Not necessarily like in a sexual way, but like she finds her sophisticated, and like just there's something about Carla. And Carla talks to her about her son, who's like not quite right. She tells her a story of like what happened to her son that led up to him being not quite right, and her son is David. Meanwhile, Amanda has a daughter, Nina, like you said, who she seems to be very worried about, right? She's constantly talking about like this rescue distance. Like she seems to be constantly just stressing over this idea of Nina's safety. And through this like wheedling out of stuff, we find out just all of these things that are happening around this town, this area,
Right.
And how it's affecting everybody who lives there, and how it very immediately kind of affects Nina and Amanda and David and everybody else. And it's creepy, and
it's like a snowball effect of things happening to people.
Yeah, and I really loved it, and I really loved David. So like we know from the beginning that something very bad is happening to Amanda. Like she's probably going to die, or just maybe she already is. Like something's not quite right. And David's almost like a spirit. He feels like, for me, he felt like, like a psychopomp. Like he's the person that's leading you through hell or to heaven or just the underworld, right? He's leading her through this series of questions and constantly redirecting her to try to get her to understand what has occurred and where she is and why she's there. And almost like, to me, it felt like an acceptance of it. Like if you accept it, then you can move on.
I thought about Ghost Whisperer. That whole showed how the spirits come to her because they have not settled in and accepted that they are dead. And so they need her to guide them, to help them with their final whatever, so they can finally release themselves and just be dead. That's immediately what I thought about, because it feels that way.
Yeah, he feels like he's this spirit guide. He's something. But he's also a victim of what's going on. And there's a lot of victims of what is going on in this place. And I think that the videos that we'll link in the show notes are tremendously helpful in articulating what that otherness is, that you can't, like, that there's something else, and that it hits on like environmental things. Something is happening to the environment that is causing problems with these people and with the land and with the animals, but layering in some of the more actual cultural context of things. So I really felt like that really rounded out my experience.
It did. Also gave us additional resources of books to read if we should choose to, which I definitely threw some in my cart. But in particular, like the whole soybean thing, because as I read the book, I kept underlining soy. I was like, what is going on with all these soy foods? Because again, I was not aware that that was such big business in Argentina. I had no idea. And so I kept trying to figure out, why is soy keep being mentioned? And so again, that video really helped to explain what that's all about. Again, super helpful.
Super helpful. So one of the big things about like large soy production is when you have these monocultures in farming and big agri, they become very susceptible to disease and whatnot. So like the big baddie Monsanto comes in and gives you pesticides like Roundup that will keep your soybeans good, but will kill everything else. The problem is all of those things have been linked to, cancer, carcinogenics. There's a lot of denial of like Monsanto and Bayer and everybody being like, no, it's not us. We didn't do this. But there's clearly this bigger than the rest of us. I think in the because they talk about hyper objects, like something that's so big that you can only see a piece of it. And this book is really like looking at that piece of it, and it's kind of, I feel like, why you can't fully no one in the novel can fully articulate what's happening. They know that so what happens is Carla's husband takes care of horses, takes care of race horses, and he takes in this stallion, this very pricey, like valuable stallion, and he's watching him, and the stallion goes to the water stream, drinks, and is like never okay again. But at the same time, other people are drinking out of this water. Other people are eating things that get nurtured by this water. And one of those things is David. So we know that there's something poisoning these people. And you know that it's part of this water, but it is this unseen, eerie thing that you can only kind of get glimmers of because of that like hyper objectness. I just love that this added this whole, I need to read that hyper objects book. I've seen it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I've never picked it up, but it's like a concept that I think I've tried to articulate in different ways, or I've thought about, but never have the words, the vocab to like fully encapsulate it. But there's like this thing that's just so big that, and I think that brings in a lot of the eeriness, is that you can only see these little bits of what is happening, and it leaves that just enough of an element of uncertainty that just remain absolutely kind of creeped, a little unsettled through the entire book, novella.
And story. I think in the same, when the lady in that video talked about slow violence, which I never heard that term before. And I just want to, so it refers to a form of harm that occurs gradually over time, often without immediate visibility, leading to devastating environmental and social consequences, and is typically not recognized as violence due to its slow and dispersed nature. And so when you think about those companies spraying those herbicides, and what was the main one? Glyphosate is the one.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, glyphosate, and how that's causing so much harm, not maybe overnight, but gradually and silently. So the hyper object and the slow violence, those, I want to read those two books because, I don't know, it tells a lot about our society in general.
Yeah, and I think the important one of the other things that came I think one of the other important things about this that's in the book and that relates back to all of this is that this slow violence, this hyper like object of big agri and industrial farming and capitalism, it's always capitalism, is this ruining of a generation. And like there's no real turning back. We get to the end of the story and we see just how far reaching the effects of this poison, this thing, it is in this region. And Amanda sees it and has to accept this. Like she was, the other flip side of this is this, not the flip side, but the other piece of this is like, you don't just have this poisoning from the water and whatever's happening with the children and the people in this town. You also have a mother who is constantly afraid that something's going to happen to their daughter and constantly worried about it, constantly talking about this rescue distance. She needs to be like, there's a string tied between her and her child, and she's constantly calculating how quickly she can get from her end of the string to her daughter, right? Should something happen. And she is sitting alongside her daughter while she's being, victimized by this thing that's bigger than all of us.
Exactly.
And so it's the rescue distance is irrelevant. The rescue distance is zero in that circumstance.
Absolutely.
And still your child is not safe.
Exactly. And that is because we cannot see and recognize all harms and dangers. It's impossible. All of them are not visible. I want to read that part when she first talks about rescue distance. And this is Amanda. She says, I always imagine the worst case scenario. Right now, for instance, I'm calculating how long it would take me to jump out of the car and reach Nina if she should suddenly run and leapt into the pool. I call it the rescue distance. That's what I've named the variable distance separating me from my daughter. And I spend half the day calculating it, though I always risk more than I should. And all throughout the book, she's talking about this. And you learn that her mother also shared that same idea, and her mother's mother. So it's definitely something that Amanda as a child dealt with her mom, and so on and so forth. And that just carries through with her own daughter. And to some degree, I really understood that. That wanting and always needing to keep your children in like direct contact to ensure that if anything should so happen to creep upon them, you can get to them before any harm is done. Like, that is a real feeling. And there are two things in this book that made me feel so tight, with a lot of tension. Every time she and David talked, I felt very tight, and every time she talked about rescue distance, I felt extremely tight. I felt very much like I was being strangled, because I don't know, it just felt like there was no way out of that thought, because especially with the rescue distance, it can be all consuming with your mind. Like, you can't think of anything else, even if there's other things going on, even if you're doing other things, but in the back of your mind, there's always that idea of rescue distance, wanting to keep your child safe. So it's constant. And sometimes that feels very smothering. So
I can believe it. I mean, obviously you're a mother, I'm not. But I can totally believe that. And you can really feel that. Even if you don't have children, you can really feel it through the way Schweblin writes this. The whole thing is very suffocating, and like, it's tight. Like, it's a very narrow story. You feel hemmed in by things. And I think also that, like, constant referencing to worms and like bury. There's a lot of burying. There's a lot of worms. There's a lot of, you know, that you are going towards death, right?
Yep.
You know that you're going towards this final spot, and then you throw in all these other things. Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, in the videos that we'll link, there's a lot of discussion of like, what is La Pampas? What is it like? It's like this big open space. So I thought it's really interesting to be in this incredibly open area, this expansive, should feel very like big and open and free. And these people are just suffocated by everything that is occurring. So it almost doesn't matter, like, they leave the city and come here looking for this like release and free. And what all you do is you run from the big city into another set of problems, and these problems are even bigger. It's a different hellscape, but it's still a hellscape. You know what I thought was interesting is that the one with the lady, that interview, whose name, I wish I wrote down the lady's name. She was very interesting, and she did give some fantastic book recommendations. She translates the end of this book as a still plague, a plaga immobile, something like that. Can't speak Spanish. And in English, in this translation, it's a motionless scourge, which is about the same. But I think a still plague has a different, like, this is just like this thing that's so slow moving, it's still, right? Like, it's this it's seeping so slowly into your lives that you don't see it, right? It's that slow violence. It's that slow creep where you don't see the enemy, you don't see the harm until you're so far down the road that you can't turn it back. Like climate crisis, all of these things. End stage capitalism, like, we can keep piling it all on here. And like, it's not just the fear of, something horrible happening to your child. There's something horrible happening to all of us.
Right.
It's a great book.
It is. It really is. It is. I mean, I read it twice. Because it's so short, you can do that, right? It's so short. But also, there is a lot that I missed the first go round, and I wish I would have found those videos after my first read. I didn't find them until after my second read, but there's just a lot to unpack here, and there's a lot of ways to look at this novel. I think it's profound in a lot of ways too. I mean, she's definitely calling out the big evils of the world and how, in a lot of ways, it is destroying all of us. So I don't know. It's kind of political as well. And I think that lady or that guy mentioned that too.
It's very political. And I think one of the things that was interesting that he said was, this soybean so it's not always like cut and dry, right?
Yeah.
So the soybean production brings in money. That money was then can be used to fund things for people who don't have, like subsidize things for people who don't have money. So there is good that can be created out of this, but how do we get there? Like, what is the harm of doing it this way, as opposed to maybe another way? And it all kind of comes back to the issues with capitalism. As we do it, there's always this, something has to give for capitalism to work,
right?
And I feel like that thing is always a large chunk of the masses. Like you gotta sacrifice a large chunk of your people to benefit a group, a much smaller group of people that sit higher up, and there's like no escaping it.
When he was explaining that they use a lot of that money to help those in need, I got so twisty on the inside, because it's like, damn, I mean, yay for using the money to help actual people in need in your country, but at the same time, there's a high number of other people who have developed diseases, who have died from this same thing. And it's like, it's just so hard to feel good about that one thing when the other thing is going on. It just made me so twisted up on the inside. Let me read this little part that he shared about the soybean biz. It says, the soybean is king in Argentina. The country grew 20 million hectares of soybeans in 2015, and the crop remains the country's main export, valued higher than Argentina's cereal, automotive, and petrochemical export. And that is, the source from that is Crop Life International.
Yeah.
So big.
And there is a lot of subsidizing, like Argentina, like every place, we can talk about how every place has a lot of problems. Argentina has a lot of problems. I can't remember when this is written, originally in Spanish. I'd have to look it up here. Let's see if it says here. It was translated in 2017. I'm not sure if it was a little bit older in terms of being written and first written. But it's been a few years, right? So there's been lots of changes and stuff. But what I recall from my Outlaws is there was a lot of subsidizing. There was a lot of, if you were elderly, you got like these breaks. If you were this, you got that. And to an American who doesn't really have a lot of social services,
right,
there is something kind of great about that. But like with everything, there's another side to the coin. There's good and evil battling together in everything. And it does beg the question, like, how do you make a perfect world? You don't. But do we need to destroy our world? I don't think so.
Right.
But can we do anything now? I don't know. I don't know how you reverse the effects of, like Roundup and everything.
Yeah, and I do remember when they were recalled on those Roundup weed killer products. Remember that a few years ago? Yeah. I was like, oh, that company. I remember that. Yeah. And what part was that? There was that part where Carla was talking to Amanda about what happened with David and that whole transmigration thing.
Yeah.
And she was saying how, I don't know, like the witch lady doctor, she's not a doctor, but she's like a medicine woman, like a root work woman or something. And she was telling Amanda like what this woman can do. And one of the things was, she said she can stop miscarriages almost all the time. And then Amanda says, are there that many? And although she didn't answer that question, that got me thinking like, wow, whatever's going on there, it is causing serious harm to where, number one, people are going to this root work woman all of the time. And the act of stopping miscarriages like is a thing. So that's also in the beginning what really got my wheels turning, like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah. But that's like the loss of a generation, right? Even when you get
Yep.
a child, the child is afflicted with things because of this like pestilence that's in the land. And it really had me thinking about, I know that in the interview he does it, they talk about COVID, obviously, because now we have that as a reference point. But you know what, I was thinking a lot about pink slime, which I don't know if you've read that yet.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking a lot about pink slime, this idea of this thing that's never fully articulated, that is
right
plaguing the world around you. And like trying to like just survive it. Pink slime's a little different. It's a little bit more focused on kind of the connections between people, I feel, than necessarily like the plague itself. But
right.
This is, so I wrote down in my notes that we create our own horrors via our own greed. And I think that that cycles back into this motherhood thing and this motherly guilt, this worry, this constant sort of, when something goes wrong, is it my fault? What could I have done to have prevented this? How do I prevent things that I can't even see? The rescue distance. But at the end of the day, like we kind of, as much as we try to do these little things, these bigger things we've created in the background are just constantly looming.
Absolutely.
And they are our own creation. And like, that's the scariest thing, is the terror, the horror that you create yourself, right? That you don't even know that you've created. So you're worried about all these other little baddies in the world, and there's something you've already made right here.
Yeah. You made a big bad, and now you can't put it back in the box.
Nope, you can't put the big bad back in the box. Oh, that's a lot of bees.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I thought the what is it? That whole idea of transmigration was interesting and also super effing creepy. I'm not gonna lie, that like totally weirded me out. So I guess we should,
that you can like take your sick child, and almost like a changeling kind of aspect of swapping with another child, essentially.
Sort of. It's like splitting the spirit of the child in two, which would therefore weaken whatever illness is ailing said child, and then that illness would die off. But then the trade-off is your child's spirit, a part of the spirit, has gone into some other body, another body, you don't know who, and then whoever that person is, a part of them goes into your child. So essentially it's like
your child's child.
You have a different child.
It's a changeling.
Yeah, it's a change, and it's just
from
so
another
strange.
Created in a new way.
Yes,
a different kind of changeling.
When she was telling her about, or whether we were seeing the scene where it was happening, and when he comes out of the room from with the root woman, and he's walking down the hallway, and he's coming towards her, being the mom Carla, and she just kind of like leans back, just like away from him. It's like I can see it all in my mind, and it just really creeped me out. It's like looking into the eyes of quote unquote your child, but it's like it's really not your child anymore. I don't even know how you wrap your head around that. I don't know how you ever feel settled with that. It's so off-putting.
I feel like David with Amanda, I don't feel like David's creepy, really, other than the worm stuff. I just feel like he's like a spirit guide, he's a psychopomp. He's otherworldly, but he's not like creepy. But when you see him through Carla's eyes, he's unsettling.
Yeah, very, very.
But like, which is David?
Well, he's unsettling with Amanda too, when they're in that house. Remember that part where she was like, I don't know, she had a weird feeling about him. She was doing something in the kitchen, and she said something like, I almost wonder if you're like still in the kitchen. Like she had a weird feeling about him too. But But perhaps that is also because of Carla, right? Because Carla has psyched her out as well. Carla has told her, I mean, she's called him a monster. Carla has made it so that she said not one positive thing about the new David. She has essentially threw all of her fears about the new David onto Amanda. So maybe that's what that really was going on.
Could be.
Yeah.
But when they're just talking and he's trying to coax her towards whatever
the light
she can of the truth or to acceptance and moving on, I don't know. He doesn't feel that creepy to me. He's like a little weird, obviously. Like he keeps talking about worms and stuff, but he doesn't feel like he does when Carla's talking about him.
Yeah, it's not as creepy. I'm still a little creeped out, just a little bit.
Because I'm waiting for his like head to. I wait for like his head to spin or something when Carla talks about him. Like crawling up walls or something, and it's just off.
Right.
Well, I think that's like one of the things that makes this a really great sort of horror-y, creepy novel is that she doesn't go. She's not like amping this up and really like leaning into like just over the top stuff. She is pulling back and leaving all these like holes for your brain to fill. And those are the creepiest things. And I love that when you allow the reader, or if it's a movie, the viewer to fill in question marks with their own sort of fears.
Absolutely.
With their own worries and their own dreads. And it's much creepier.
It is. It is. Yeah. The horror is not heavy-handed. In this book. And I think that's what made it fantastic.
Excellent.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know. I just loved it so much.
It was really good.
Yeah, I just didn't expect this. I didn't expect it at all.
I didn't know anything about it really going in, and I was very pleased.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was your pick, I think. So thank you.
Yeah. When we got to where was it? When Carla says to Amanda that she sometimes thinks about like going away and starting fresh and having a little girl like Nina, I was like, uh-oh. Why would you say that? I was immediately like, oh, what? Wait a minute. So my brain just kind of went all over the place. Like, I am not feeling good about this. Now I really don't trust Carla.
I felt like Carla was the creepiest person in this entire story.
She was super creepy. She really amped my brain up. Yeah. Because, her and Amanda and Carla both had very different parental anxieties. I related to Amanda's parental anxieties. Carla's really creeped me out. She freaked me out. She worried me, and I could just never get right with her. She seemed like a bomb just waiting to go off. I couldn't trust her at all. She didn't seem very solid or grounded either. So that was another thing.
No, she was a strange woman.
She was.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to read more from her. I really enjoyed this. If people listening, watching have read this, let us know your thoughts. I think this is one of those books where it's kind of nice that you don't understand everything, that there's so much that is left for your mind to kind of fill in gaps and like just ruminate on, that there's a lot to talk about. Like it's what, like 150 pages or something, and there's a lot to
183 to be exact
pick out.
Yeah, I mean, you can read this book in a day, but you will have so many questions and so many thoughts about what's going on. It's fantastic. Just absolutely fantastic. We won't share the end, but what did you think about the end? We won't say what it is, but
I guess it like wasn't surprising, but it was surprising.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was very sad.
It is sad. Um, but I guess it's like the right ending, right?
Mm-hmm. I guess.
It's just good.
Yeah.
Go read it.
Please read it.
Yeah.
Please read it. It's so worth your time. And like Alyssa said, we will link the 2 videos about this book that we both watched because they are really, number one, just the first one is a great conversation. And both of the videos are extremely informative about some of the background things that are going on in this book and with that country. So we will link those in the show notes on our website, tbrlowdown.com.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Fantastic. Wow, that wraps up our little book club. Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think we had some good stuff in there this year.
We really did. We really, really did. I'm pleased.
Me too.
All right. I think it's book recommendation time. What are you recommending to the people?
I'm recommending a book that I do not recall when it's coming out because I think it's out in like Australia and the UK. I don't think it's out in the US until sometime in 2025. Maybe January. Can't remember. And that is Evie Wild, The Echoes. I think it ties in nicely with Fever Dream as well, simply because they both kind of have this ghost element. I read this little several weeks ago, so I've already forgotten some people's names. But you have a couple different storylines. You have this woman who is dating a man, and they are in the UK, and he has died, but we don't know how. So he is one of the POVs, and he is a ghost watching her, and we cycle back but forth between. Oh, his name is Max. That's right. So when Max is, I'm trying to get names for you. We see Max in the past with her, their relationship. We learn that like she's from Australia originally. She's very cagey about him going and meeting her family. She's just never really, he's not sure what's going on. We're not sure what's truly happening. And then we also have a perspective that is the past when she's in Australia and what happened with her mom, her uncle, this weird place that they live that is was at one point like a, I can't remember what they're really called. I always forget the name of this, but like the schools that they would put Aboriginal children into
the residential schools.
Thank you. So they live on this land that used to be a residential school. So they're living on this land that's just like filled with bodies of, dead Aboriginal children and things. And it's just a creepy place to begin with to kind of grow up. She has a sister, and it seems like a relatively happy family. Her uncle lives on the property as well somewhere, and he's got a girlfriend. And as the story is unfolding, you learn more and more about her mother's past, her uncle's past, what happened to her family as time went on, how that the trauma from the past has crept into the present, and how that leaches into her life now, why she left Australia to come to the UK. It is just so brilliantly executed. All the while you have Max sort of looking on as a ghost, right? And so there's some really just beautiful scenes and moments with Max watching her after he dies, right? So he's watching her grief for him, and there's some of them are just, it's like heartbreaking because you can tell how much they loved each other. And you can see as the story unfolds kind of how some of her past trauma held them back in some ways in their relationship, but they still very much love each other. It is so brilliantly done. I absolutely loved this.
Sounds so good.
It is so good. And it could be really sloppy with these different times and POVs, and it's not. It's just, I loved it. It was so good.
Wow.
So please read it. I don't know when it comes out in the US. I'm so bad at remembering to look that stuff up. I think it's in January. Let's see. The Echoes, E.B. Wild. But it is out in the UK already, and it will be I'm wrong. February 18th, it'll be released in the US. Okay. So I suggest that you pre-order it.
I like it. That sounds really good.
Yeah. And a thank you to Knopf for sending me an e-arc. So
yeah.
Yeah. What do you have?
Well, I read in the margins. Look, I read In the Margins on the Pleasures of Reading and Writing by Elena Ferrante.
Oh, you've never read her before.
So this was fantastic. First, listen, I've read all of her fiction. Okay. Do not read this book if you have not read all of Elena Ferrante's fiction work. There are lots of spoilers. So don't do that to yourself. This is a great book to read if you've read all of her fiction work, because you get all the background details about how she came to these characters and what she was thinking and what books she read to get her on the path to writing about this character and that character. And she specifically talks about this one particular, there are two particular books that she reread that kind of put her on the path to writing the Neapolitan Quartet. It's an amazing book. If you really want to, like me, how I'm obsessed with this writer, get into their head to really see how she came to write all of these novels. This was a great book to read. And I would also say, if you're an aspiring writer, you should pick this up too. But again, just know, if you've not read all of her fiction, things will be spoiled. So be careful. And I think that you have a greater appreciation for this book if you've read her fiction first. So this was great. It's really, really short. I can't believe how fast I read it, but it's only 111 pages. It's like I started it and then I was done. But I do have quite a bit of things in here highlighted, underlined, and a lot of thoughts in here about how I felt reading her works that she's discussing in here. And I don't know, I just had a really good time with this, and it just made me love her even more. So that is In the Margins on the Pleasures of Reading and Writing by Elena Ferrante.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are some good books. We do good books.
We do. Wow. I guess that's gonna wrap it up.
It is.
Yeah,
we've got one more episode
to record, and yeah.
I have
so
pizza
anyway,
going cold, so we have to wrap this up.
Anyway, follow us everywhere at TBR Lowdown. Visit our website, tbrlowdown.com, for all the things. We will be sharing. No, this episode is going to come out after. So if you haven't already seen it, please go to our website to look at our reading schedule for our 2026 book club picks. TBRLowdown.com.
Five.
Oh, wait, 2025.
Stop.
I guess I'm trying to speed things along for certain reasons. Go to our website, TBRLowdown.com, to look at our book club picks for 2025 and read with us. Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Share this podcast with a friend or two, or 24, because it's the end of 2024 as we're recording this. And leave a review. That really helps us a lot. So thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in. We are out of here. Bye.